In the annals of the sunlit kingdom, no name shone brighter than Sir Kaelen. He was not just a knight, he was an idea. He was the Sun Knight, a living symbol of perfect, unblemished virtue. His armor was polished to a blinding mirror finish. His braid, lux, sang with an inner light, and his smile never wavered. The people did not just respect him, they revered him as a saint in steel. This perfection was no accident. It was the lifelong work of his mentor, High Mage Ilara. She, the matriarch of the luminous spire, had raised Kaelen on a single, absolute dogma. Light is life, darkness is defect. To be good, one must be pure. A single shadow, a moment of doubt, a flicker of anger. These are not parts of you. They are infections. They must be purged. And Kaelen was her greatest student. He meditated daily, purging all negativity. He never felt tired, for weariness was a weakness. He never felt anger, for anger was a poison. He never felt fear, for fear was a failure. Sir Kaelen was a flawless, heroic, and utterly hollow man. His greatest triumph came on the fields of Drakenglen. An army of brigands had stolen the village's entire harvest. Kaelen rode for 3 days and 3 nights without rest, his armor never dimming. He confronted the army not with violence, but with such pure, radiant authority that the brigands, blinded by his virtue, laid down their arms in shame. He returned every last grain of wheat to the cheering villagers. As he raised his glowing sword in salute, the sun seemed to bow to him. That night, the demon was born. It came as he slept, a thing of pitch-black, formless terror. It rose from his own shadow on the wall, solidifying into a monstrous, twisted parody of the Sun Knight. It was Kaelen, but 10 feet tall, with claws of solidified night and eyes like burning embers. While Kaelen slept the sleep of the righteous, the shadow Kaelen slunk to the village granary. With a silent, howling rage, it tore the building apart, scattering the hard-won grain into the mud, setting fire to the chaff with its burning touch. Kaelen awoke to screams. He saw the devastation and for the first time felt a cold knot of terror. The villagers, once adoring, now looked at him with confusion and fear. "It looked like you, Sir Kaelen," one whispered. Kaelen was horrified. A demon, a dark entity, had taken his form to mock him. He vowed to his mentor and his kingdom, "I will not rest until this creature of darkness is vanquished from the land." Thus began the war that could not be won. Kaelen became a whirlwind of desperate virtue. He worked twice as hard. He saved a town from a flood. That night, his shadow appeared and methodically poisoned the town's well. He defended a royal caravan. That night, his shadow terrified the horses, sending the king's carriage plummeting into a ravine. The harder Kaelen fought to be the light, the stronger, more defined, and more destructive his shadow became. It was no longer a formless monster. It was his perfect dark twin. His first attempt at battle was a disaster. He cornered the shadow in a ruined abbey at midnight. "Demon!" he yelled, igniting his blade lux. "Face me!" The shadow merely tilted his head. Kaelen charged, his blade of pure light slicing through the creature's chest. There was no impact. The shadow did not bleed. It simply absorbed the blow. The light from his sword seemed to dim as the creature fed on it. It grew larger. It opened its mouth, and Kaelen's own voice, distorted with rage, roared back at him, Fool! The shadow lashed out, not with a weapon, but with a force of pure despair that threw Kaelen across the abbey, shattering the stone altar. He fled, his body unbroken, but his spirit deeply wounded. He returned to the luminous spire, his perfect smile finally cracking. He was exhausted, he was angry, and he was terrified. He confessed his failure to High Mage Ilara. She looked at him not with compassion, but with a cold, diagnostic fury. "It is stronger than I thought," she said. "The infection is deep. You have been lax, Kaelen. Your doubt has fed it. But no matter. Absolute light casts out all shadows. We will perform the rite of ablution." They stood in the great hall, on a floor of white marble inlaid with a golden sun. Ilara and her circle of mages began the chant, a high-frequency song that made the air vibrate. Light poured into the room, not the gentle light of the sun, but a harsh, sterile, blinding white light that bleached all color from the world. "Show yourself, demon!" Ilara commanded, and it did. In the center of the blinding absolute light, Kaelen's shadow appeared. It did not cower, it did not burn. In that terrible, featureless light, the shadow became more real, more defined. It was the only thing in the room with any texture. It drank the magic. "More light!" Ilara screamed, her voice cracking with the first hint of doubt. The mages poured their power in. The air itself began to shimmer with heat. The shadow raised its head. It began to laugh, a sound of profound, agonizing relief. At last, it boomed in Kaelen's voice, "I am seen." It expanded, the darkness billowing outwards, extinguishing the magical light like a snuffed candle. The mages were thrown back. The great hall was plunged into a terrifying, preternatural darkness. And in that dark, all they could hear was the broken, terrified sobbing of the High Mage Ilara. Her life's work, her entire philosophy had been shattered in an instant. It didn't burn," she wept. "The light, it made it stronger. How?" In that moment, Kaelen's world broke. His mentor was lost. His magic had failed. His kingdom was in peril, and he was alone, staring into a darkness that wore his own face. He ran. For a week, Sir Kaelen, the Sun Knight, fled into the wilderness. He threw his shining armor in a river. He left his blade Lux in the mud. He who had never known weariness collapsed under a tree and slept for 2 days. He who had never known true anger screamed at the uncaring sky until his throat was raw. He who had never known fear wept for his own soul. His quest was no longer to save his kingdom, it was simply to understand. He journeyed to the one place his mentor had forbidden him, the Cave of Truth, a place where light and dark held no meaning. He entered the cave not as a knight, but as a broken man. The darkness was total. He fumbled, stumbled, and finally sat on the cold stone floor. "Demon," he whispered into the void, his voice hoarse. "I am done fighting. Show me what you are. Tell me why you hate me." A sound echoed in the blackness, the sound of heavy footsteps. 2 burning red embers ignited in the dark, and the shadow Kaelen stood before him. It was immense, filling the cave, but it did not attack. It simply waited.
"Why did you burn the grain?" Kaelen asked, his voice a child's plea. The shadow tilted its head, and from its throat, Kaelen's voice, layered with 1,000 echoes of pain, whispered, "I was so hungry." Kaelen froze. I gave them the grain. I fed them." "You fed them, but I was hungry. 3 days and 3 nights you rode. You did not eat. You did not rest. I was the hunger you denied. I am your weariness. I am your pain." "The caravan," Kaelen whispered, dawning horror on his face. "That merchant, he spat on your boot, and you smiled at him. You smiled. I am the rage you swallowed. I am the scream you held back. I am every no you turned into a yes. I am your doubt. I am your fear. I am everything you are, Kaelen, and you tried to kill me."
The shadow did not move, but the sheer weight of its suppressed agony filled the cavern. This was not a demon. This was a child, his child, a part of his own soul he had chained in the dungeon of his mind and denied existed. The harder he tried to be a perfect light, the more starved, enraged, and monstrous his other half had become. Tears streamed down Kaelen's face. He understood. He finally understood. "You are right," Kaelen said, his voice breaking. I was so tired. I was so angry. I was so afraid. And I am so sorry." He dropped his gaze from the creature's terrifying face and looked at its hands, which were clenched into fists of knotted shadow. Slowly, Kaelen stood. He did not reach for a weapon. He simply opened his arms. "You don't need to fight anymore," he wept. "You don't need to hide. You are a part of me, and I see you. I hear you. Please, come home." The shadow stared. Its burning eyes flickered. The towering, terrifying form began to tremble, and then it began to shrink. The demonic features softened, the claws receded, until all that was left was a humanoid shape of pure, vibrating darkness, the size of Kaelen himself. It took one hesitant step forward, and then it fell into Kaelen's embrace. As the night and his shadow held each other, a new light filled the cave. It was not the harsh, sterile white of the spire, nor the burning red of the shadow's rage. It was a soft, silvery light, the light of the moon, the light of balance. The shadow dissolved, not in defeat, but in acceptance, flowing into Kaelen's body, merging with his very being. When Sir Kaelen walked out of the cave, the sun was rising. He was no longer the Sun Knight. His hair, once pure gold, was now streaked with silver and shadow. His eyes, once a simple blue, now held the depth of the night sky. He retrieved his armor, but it no longer shined with a blinding light. It now held a muted, pearlescent glow, like an opal, shifting between light and dark. He returned to the kingdom. He was still a hero, but he was a different kind of hero. He still saved villages, but he did so with a weary sigh and a profound understanding of their suffering. He still stopped brigands, but he did so with a cold, controlled anger that demanded justice, not just purity. He learned to say no. He learned to rest.
He learned to be angry, and he learned to be sad. He became whole. His first act was to visit the luminous spire. He found Ilara in the darkened hall, a woman broken by her own rigid philosophy. She looked at him in terror. "The demon, it's inside you," she whispered. Kaelen sat beside her on the cold floor, in the one patch of sunlight streaming through the window. "No, teacher," he said, his voice now a perfect balance of light and dark. "It was never a demon. It was just me, and I am finally whole." He placed his hand over hers. He did not offer her a solution. He did not offer her a new dogma. He simply sat with her in her darkness, sharing his own. And for the first time, the healing began. The story of Kaelen is the story of the shadow we all carry. We are taught to be good, to be strong, to be positive. And so we push our anger, our sadness, our fears, and our weariness into the dark. We try to purge the parts of ourselves we deem unacceptable. But wisdom does not come from purging our darkness. It comes from integrating it. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is your starved anger, your unheard pain, your unfelt fatigue. It is a part of you that simply needs to be seen, heard, and welcomed home. What part of your own shadow have you been fighting? And what strength might you find, not in defeating it, but in embracing it? If this story helped you see yourself more clearly, help our community grow, subscribe to Mindbloom Animation for more stories that help us understand our whole selves.